Hello, I am Wanda Pierce, co-chair of the Arlington Complete Count Committee, along with Elisa Ortiz. I am also co-hosting today's session with Bryna Helfer, Assistant County Manager. Welcome to our session tonight and for your amazing partnership during this census season. We have been at it since 2019, April of 2019, and this might go down as one of the most interesting and unusual decennial census in our nation's history. Thank you for your partnership and commitment. Our goal for tonight's session is to provide updates about the status of the 2020 census, provide answers to your questions, and recommit to the challenge put before us to ensure that every resident in Arlington is counted. Tonight, we are joined by some outstanding leaders, and we are appreciative of their time, their commitment, and their leadership in Arlington so that we can all be counted to ensure that every resident in Arlington is counted. Tonight, we are joined by several people who are committed, including Takis Karantinas, who is the Arlington County Board member, the newest one, Matt DeFerente, Arlington County Board member, Barbara Cannonen, Arlington Public Schools Board member, Beth Link, Director of the Census Counts campaign at the Leadership Center for Civil and Human Rights and the Leadership Conference Education Fund, Lisa Chesno with the U.S. Census Bureau, Elizabeth Hardy, who is Chief Demographer and Principal Planner at Arlington County Government, and Jerusalem or Jerry Solomon, Arlington Census Core Team member. So let's get started. I will turn it over to Matt DeFerente, Arlington County Board member. Matt.
Thank you, Wanda, and thanks to everyone for being here tonight and for your commitment to the Complete Count Committee. I think of the beginning of this with Wanda and Bryna and all of the partners on this call and how much work you put in so far, and we are very grateful. But as you may have heard, we have a new deadline for completing the 2020 census. It's now September 30th. And nearly 30% of Arlington still needs to be counted. The Constitution says the census counts everyone living in the United States, every immigrant, every child, every neighbor, every student, everyone, for purposes of congressional apportionment and federal funding. In Arlington, we depend on the census for our federal funding, which is approximately $50 million every year. Critical services that we all care about, like transportation, housing, emergency services, free and reduced lunches, and more. Though the expedited deadline has posed obstacles to ensuring a fair, accurate, and complete count, I know our team and our partners, and we are all accepting the challenge and committed to continuing our efforts to get as many self-responses as possible in the coming weeks. Now's the time to double down on our community outreach, our social media engagement, and making sure that everyone in Arlington knows why it's important to participate in the 2020 census and how to be counted. I have a great pleasure of introducing Beth Link, who's the director of the 2020 Census Campaign for the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, an organization that we're proud to work with as we seek to make sure everyone in Arlington is counted. Beth?
Thank you so much, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Link. I'm the Census Counts Campaign Director at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Thank you so much to the Arlington Complete Count Committee for having me here today. The Census Counts campaign, which is housed at the Leadership Conference, brings together community-based organizations across a wide spectrum of advocacy, civil rights, immigrant, LGBTQ, disability, infant and child, poverty, homelessness, faith-based, the list goes on. And through education, training, organizing, and outreach, our organizers and our advocates are working to ensure that communities that the census has historically missed are counted in the 2020 census. We are so grateful to be working with the City of Arlington and all of you to ensure that we have a fair and accurate 2020 census. And I just have to say, kudos to your team and your leadership and the really innovative outreach that has been happening in Arlington to get out the count. It is more important now than ever, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the stakes and outreach that we really have to respond to in this moment. As an aside, I also love the Arlington Complete Count shirts and all the outreach that's happening. So shout out there. As we all know, the census is the foundation of America, and so the census should look like America. And the Census Bureau has been planning for a decade to meet this goal and recently adjusted operations to meet the challenges of a public health crisis. The stakes are higher now than ever nationally, and I know in Arlington, response rates have exceeded 2010 rates, but when we look at disparities as it pertains to communities of color, immigrant communities, we're still seeing differences in response rates and in the rate of response. Nationally, we know in predominantly American Indian and Alaska Native communities that are less are seeing response rates less than half of the U.S. rate. We're seeing in Black communities, those communities' response rates are more than 10 percentage points behind the U.S. rate in predominantly Black neighborhoods. In predominantly Hispanic and Latino neighborhoods, response rates on average are more than 7 points behind the U.S. rate. And so the stakes are very high, and we're coming to a really critical moment in the census calendar when enumerators are starting to go door to door to collect responses. In spite of all of this, over the last few weeks, the Trump administration has doubled down on its efforts to undermine the 2020 census. In a three-pronged effort to undermine the census, we are seeing efforts to shortchange and cut census operations that count particularly communities of color and other marginalized communities short and shortchange specific operations. We all have to remain vigilant and guard against this nefarious scheming. And specifically, I want to outline kind of three components of this three-pronged plan that we've been witnessing and seeing over the past couple of days. First, a little over 3 weeks ago, President Trump signed an executive memorandum that directs the Census Bureau to exclude undocumented immigrants from the apportionment base and the data that is reported to Congress and the White House for the purposes of apportionment. Important notes about this memorandum are a few things that it does not do. It does not change how the Census Bureau counts people. It does not make changes to census operations, and it does not change the fact that everyone counts. It is unconstitutional. After this memorandum, there were 9 lawsuits filed, many of which are continuing, and we're seeing kind of updates coming in live time. We also know that this does not change the fact that there is no citizenship question on the 2020 census, and that's important to educate communities about. This is, as I mentioned, it's unconstitutional, but it also was designed to inject fear, confusion, and chaos into the census operation. And that's something that we all have a role in combating and educating community members about the fact that everyone counts. It's in the Constitution, but also we all have a right to count. We know people who are undocumented live and work and are active members of our community and do count and will count in the census. So we must continue our outreach to those communities. The second prong of this plan to undermine and sabotage the census really revolves around looking to cut the census off early and deprive millions of people of color, people with low income, American Indians, and more of their right to be reflected in the portrait of America. Let's be clear, this is a pattern of a years-long effort to suppress the count and rig the 2020 census to reflect a less diverse and an inaccurate portrait of America. We all have an important role to get out the count, encourage participation, and encourage participation in the census, and ensure that we all have the exercise our right to participate, our right to be counted, and our right to the resources and the political representation that communities deserve. The a few kind of key points in terms of what we're monitoring with regard to that specific attack. Kind of was in twofold. One is that the Census Bureau has, at the urging of the White House, has cut short operations by 30 days. We know that the effort to undermine the census operations means that they have directed that both non-response follow-up and the self-response operation would end by September 30th. That is, again, in response to the direction from the White House to collect and finish the data reporting process, including the post-data processing, which normally under regular circumstances takes 5 months to complete that within a 2 to 3 month period, so that the data can be reported to Congress by December 30th, 2020, instead of the date which had been requested by the White House, by the Commerce Secretary, that extension that had already been requested. So what are we doing here, and what can we all do to kind of stop this effort and to ensure a fair and accurate count? So first, we want to continue to get out the count, continue to educate communities about how everyone can participate and how easy it is to participate, educate people to combat the fear and chaos that is being injected into this process. Secondly, and really importantly and urgently right now, is that Congress has the opportunity and the ability to act to extend the reporting deadlines, which had previously been requested by the White House, by the Commerce Secretary, by the Census Bureau, to extend the reporting deadlines for apportionment and redistricting, so that the Census Bureau has the time that it needs to count everyone. The House has already acted to extend the apportionment and redistricting deadlines, and now it's up to the Senate. The best vehicle to do this is the upcoming COVID-19 relief bill. As we, as folks may have seen over the weekend, negotiations between the White House and Senate and House leadership failed, and President Trump signed a executive memorandum that does not act on the census crisis that we're all in, but also does not take the pressure off of Congress to act. So it is up to all of us, and really encouraging everyone here, as you are continuing to get out the count, call on congressional leaders, call on members of Congress, and particularly senators, to extend the 2 reporting deadlines, so again, that the Census Bureau has the time that it needs to get out the count. We must stop the Trump administration and this effort to sabotage the census, and I really do believe we will. We've done it before with the citizenship question. In the face of seemingly insurmountable chaos and crisis, census organizers from across the country are not only meeting every challenge and change to census operations with extraordinary creativity and passion, but we also have seen that we've mobilized. We stopped in the citizenship question 1 year ago, and we really can mobilize now to get out the count. This is really an all-hands-on-deck effort, and again, we know that without a functional democracy in which everyone is included, heard, and represented, we really can't make real progress on civil and human rights issues like affordable health care, fair wages, educational equity, and justice reform, just to name a few. But even in this moment, which is a very tough moment, we must remember that our voice is our power, our movement is strong, and we all will be counted. So thank you so much to all of you, and I think we'll have a few moments for questions.
Great, thanks, Beth. And Beth, your camera is not on. Maybe you can.
Oh, it's showing up on my end is on. Let me try this again. Is it working now?
No, but you were loud and clear. Yes, that's great. Great.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Well, hi, everybody.
Your passion comes through regardless. We do have a couple questions, and we invite people to submit their questions via text at 571-348-3053 or through the chat box. And so we'll just get started with a couple of questions that are in here. It seems like there's you talked a lot about some of the mistrust and what's happening, but what are the efforts to publicly address the fears about the census and misuse of information?
Absolutely. So just to be very clear, we at the Leadership Conference and members of the coalition, including Asian Americans Advancing Justice, AAJC, MALDEF, NAACP, and others have been very closely monitoring census operations and kind of came together back in March to launch a census protection pledge where we're really committed to be watchdogs for anyone who may be concerned about their personal data, but also might be concerned about, is the census safe to participate? And to those concerns, we say yes, and we encourage folks to respond. We know that census data is protected by some of the strongest confidentiality protections under federal law. Title 13, the Census Act, is very clear. There are strong penalties to census employees and staff that violate those confidentiality protections, including, jail time and very steep penalties. But also there is a network of advocates and leaders that are on deck to respond to any breaches and respond to any nefarious activity, as evidenced by what we just saw when the executive memorandum was rolled out. Very clearly unconstitutional. Everyone counts. The Constitution is very clear that all persons in the United States count, and persons means persons. There's no no mix-up about that. So that is why we saw 9 lawsuits filed in response to that action, and I think we're optimistic that we'll see action from the courts to remedy that issue. And so really just want to say that we've got your back. I mean, all of the work that the city of Arlington is doing, the Arlington Complete Count Committee is doing to get out the count, it is so critical as trusted messengers in your community. And so I just say we've got your back, and there's really an army of lawyers and advocates that are monitoring for any breaches and fears.
You actually addressed one of the questions. We're not quite ready for those slides yet, so we'll take those down and get Beth back up there. But you asked us, you answered one of the questions about the unconstitutionality that's Leadership Conference and a lot of other folks are looking at. And I know, Matt DiFerrante, if I might put you on the spot, our county board member, if you could talk a little bit about some actions that our own county board has taken around the concerns relative to the census. Sure.
So as a board, we voted unanimously to join one of those lawsuits because anyone who reads the plain language of the Constitution knows nearly immediately once you look at that memo that it is unconstitutional. And so we stand with the Leadership Conference and really communities across the country that are saying this is clearly a violation of the Constitution. What we know is that we want to outwork this nefarious attempt to undermine the census. So TACUS all of us, we're in full support. We're happy to move forward, and we're going to be working to make the count strong and also watching to make sure that any legal developments that need to support our community as a whole and every member in it are supported by the board and the county.
Thank you. Beth, I just wondered if you might just talk for a minute about, we have a number of advocates on tonight that work with immigrants and people that don't have citizenship questions, that have these fears. What is it that they can say to the people in their circle about the importance of the question of taking the census? Why should people step forward at this time when there's so much trepidation?
Yeah. Simply, the census is a tool for change. We all have a right to participate in the census, and we all have a right to use it. It is an opportunity to bring resources to your community, to build and support the road to recovery of how we rebuild after this global health crisis, this pandemic. It's how, funding for healthcare, for infrastructure, for education comes to communities, and certainly your opportunity to make sure that, Arlington gets the resources that you deserve. It's also an opportunity to make sure that your community has and is represented by the people who really represent you. Even if you aren't eligible to vote, you're eligible and able and have a right to participate in the census because you count and you live and work in your community. So, we're really inviting people to participate in your democracy by participating in the census. The final way is that census data is a really important tool for civil rights advocates like myself and my colleagues at the Leadership Conference and our partners in the civil rights community. We utilize census data, whether it's our education task force in ensuring that civil rights protections and education equity provisions are put in place and implemented correctly. It is what we use to enforce the Voting Rights Act, to ensure that fair housing practices are upheld and enforced. So that data is incredibly important as a tool to certainly bring resources and power to your community, but also when we think about longer term system change, it's a real opportunity to do that. All of that said, I think, just on a human level, there's an opportunity to just have a conversation about, we know that folks are scared. We know this is an unprecedented moment. And here is an opportunity for you to bring resources and power to your community. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the individual and the family to make that decision. But generally, and what we've been seeing is when we have those conversations and talk about what's important to an individual or to a household, and allow people to make, that decision for what's best for their family. It is just so clear how important and how much the census brings to a community that that outreach can really be impactful.
Thank you. We do have a question about confidentiality and safety. President Trump has called for everyone on the that's not a citizen to be counted. Who has access to that information? How can we ensure that information does not get out? You alluded to it earlier, but I'm not sure everyone may have caught the provisions of confidentiality and who has access to the data and how is the data presented?
Yeah, no, really good question. I can't say it enough that census data is some of the most protected data under federal law. Personally identifiable information is kept under lock and key for 72 years, and it is punishable by up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 fine if that data is shared by any sworn census worker. And an anecdote I like to turn back to is that when someone scrawled a death threat to President Clinton, I believe, on their 2000 census, the Census Bureau couldn't share that information with Secret Service because it would have violated the protections under Title 13. So incredibly strong confidentiality protections just in federal law. However, we know we live in lawless times, and in some cases we're seeing efforts that do violate the law. Again, we don't anticipate and are not have no reason to think that there would be any efforts, but we want to, plan for all scenarios, which is why the Leadership Conference with AJC, MALDEF, and a number of other entities, along with the Brennan Center, which is based in New York, have contingency plans and are playing that watchdog role to ensure that we're able to tell and assure communities that we've got your back, and we'll take action if anything happens.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here. We're just thrilled for you to take time tonight. So I know you have a really busy and packed schedule and you may not be able to stay with us the rest of the time, but thank you. With that, I think we're going to move right along, and we wanted to hear from the Census Bureau directly. And we have Lisa Chesnell with us, who's with the regional office here, the area office on Crystal City, and has been working in our partnership, their partnership office, and works with us hand in hand to figure out how to best reach our entire community. So Lisa, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a couple slides for Lisa. Jennifer? Jennifer, can we put up Lisa's slides? Just give us a second.
Coming, hold on. Getting them. All right. You guys seeing those now?
Yep. Okay, Lisa, go for it.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Lisa Chanel, and I live here in Arlington, and I work for the Census Bureau. And I just wanted to give you some operational updates. One of the things that has not been covered yet tonight is an effort by the Census Bureau to be in communities, and particularly in neighborhoods that have low response areas. And so there's about 3,000 census workers out in communities across the United States, including here in Arlington County. And this started on July 13th, and it's called Mobile Questionnaire Assistance, MQA for short. And the Census Bureau is setting up outside of a lot of partners that we already have in the community, and they have iPads available on the spot right there. You can fill out your census, and they can provide assistance with that, and also just building awareness in those communities that it's not too late to self-respond and that everyone counts. And so the county and the CCC have been really instrumental in helping us with this. And we've several weeks of this now, and we have lots of lessons learned, and we know what works. And we're also taking safety precautions, following federal, state, and local health guidelines. Everyone's wearing masks and maintaining social distance. And we've had quite a few successful sites, and I do believe that is why the numbers in Arlington have risen in the past few weeks since MQA started. Some successful sites that we had, I listed here. AFAC has been really wonderful. That's the Arlington Food Assistance Center. The Gates of Ballston community has been very welcoming to the census and incredibly helpful to us in our efforts to get their community counted. We've also been at local grocery stores, Megamart, Glebe Market, again, in low response areas or areas where people are going that we know that need to be counted. And so again, the county has been incredibly helpful, helping us man these booths, providing language support, and making sure that we're out there in those communities that need the most help. Okay, so you can advance the slides for me. That would be great. Okay, so another thing that happened here that affected Arlington County was that the Crystal City Area Census Office, which includes Arlington County, as well as some of our neighboring counties, was chosen for the soft launch of non-response follow-up. So there have been census workers out and about in our community since July 23rd. And that is, and the county also was helpful again in providing training for us, and the enumerators are now, working on reaching those hard to reach areas. And so I just want to emphasize, though, even with the mobile questionnaire assistance, the non-response follow-up, it's not too late to respond. Like some folks have been confused, like, oh no, well, if non-response follow-up is starting, is it too late to self-respond? It's not. You know, self-responding saves the census time and money, and that's what we really, really want to encourage people to do. It'll save the enumerators a trip. So, there's one thing that has happened, because we are living in this time of COVID, is that some apartment buildings have had some serious restrictions in place for COVID, just because there are lots of people coming and going. And so we have run into some resistance to having our enumerators in the buildings. And we are working through those issues. And again, we have reached out to the county for their support. And of course, they've been incredibly helpful. So we have drafted some letters to address this issue, and we're actively working through those. And yeah, as has been mentioned previously, all of these operations, including self-response, will end on September 30th. But it's, again, I think it's important to emphasize to everyone, that it's not too late, and that they can shape their future for the next 10 years in responding. And it's incredibly important that all of you and the partners, you really emphasize the importance of not just now, the here and now, but it's literally the next 10 years. And so please do your part and continue to reach out and get everyone to reach out. And we're going to be out and about in the community until September 30th. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a number of questions for you, so we're going to get right into those. And the first one is just about multifamily buildings. And what are your plans for reaching into, you talked about the challenges, but what are the plans for outreach in multifamily buildings?
Well, the census historically has had assistance from volunteers who live in the buildings and are willing to assist us. And those volunteers still exist today in the time of COVID, and they still want to do their part. And so the Census Bureau here at the area census office here in Crystal City has been, coming up with plans to work with them. They've also been talking with the folks running our MQA operations to see how the enumerators and the MQA initiatives could work jointly together. And that way, maybe some folks in the building, if they knew that there was going to be MQA at their building, they could just come outside and work with us to self-respond rather than having people knocking at your door and inside the building. So there are a variety of things that the Census Bureau is exploring. And again, this is sort of uncharted territory, and and so folks are working hard and fast to come up with solutions.
Thank you. We had a name change. We had a road change the name this year, last year, from Jefferson Davis Highway to Richmond Highway. And there's a number of buildings that sit, multifamily buildings and residents that sit on that roadway, and they're getting multiple questionnaires in the mail, and they're filled out their questionnaire, but they're still getting an enumerator. What do you say to that confusion, and what should people do at this point?
Yeah, at this point, you should always self-respond. There is absolutely no harm in filling out any number of the forms that you received. The Census Bureau is a bureau of statisticians who are very good at figuring out these sorts of problems, and they want everyone to be counted. And we want everyone to be counted. So I think the best advice is to fill out the self-respond. And then, if somebody knocks at your door, let them know, but you can also be counted that way. And that way you're definitely going to be counted. So we're not going to miss you.
Hey, Lisa, there's some people that are interested in helping, get to MQAs with with interpreters and multi-language options. Can you talk a little bit about how the census can be taken in different languages and where people can access, interpreters to help them.
Yeah, so the census has set up various information for different languages, including the phone line. I think the phone is something that I believe is underutilized in this time of the internet. But the phone is great because we have phone lines in 13 languages, and those are the major. Those are the 13 major languages. But if you speak a language that isn't covered by those 13 languages on the phone lines, there are guides on 2020census.gov, and I believe it's 54 other languages, and so you can find help to fill out the questionnaire on our website.
And I see that Portia Clark is on by phone. Portia, for many of you know Portia in her role as president of the Green Valley Civic Association, but she's also a member of the United States Census Bureau team leading the mobile questionnaire assistance. And Portia, people are asking, is there a way that they can find out where the MQAs will be and where interpreters might be available on site?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a way right now that we're advertising our events other than we are sending it to our community partners. It's going to our Complete Count folks. So as we develop the schedules, hopefully by Friday of each week, we make it available to our partners so that they can advertise it. We are doing flyers in some of the areas that we're going in with mobile questionnaire assistance centers so that people can come out and know that we're going to be there. This past Saturday, we did a parade and flooded Southern Towers, and we're also sending the information out via social media or other platforms if we can reach people's pages that we can post to.
That's really helpful. Thank you. People are asking I guess Lisa, maybe how the faith community can get involved and how they can be helpful.
Of course, we have, as a partner, now I'm speaking from my partnership specialist role, we have lots of partners who are in the faith community, and they're integral to the census. We have available the census logo can be placed on their websites. We have promotional materials that we can send them, information that they can use on their social media. Any number of things to help the faith community, but it's really critical. We did have a faith-based weekend of action a couple weeks ago. So the Census Bureau is well in tune with the faith community and knows how important those trusted voices are in those communities. And so if there's any questions, I mean, they could reach out to us and we can provide more information, of course.
Yeah, and they can also reach through us to get connected.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Elizabeth Hardy, we have a question about our regional connections and what we're doing to work with, our partners in Washington, D.C. and in Fairfax and Alexandria. And I wondered if you could start, and then maybe Lisa or Portia can pick that up a little bit.
Sure. So we have a great connection around the region. We're working with partners not only in Northern Virginia, but also D.C. and Maryland. We have been meeting on a regular basis, coordinating on events, sharing different outreach and what we've been doing. We have worked together to get signs up in Metro, to get communications going out through just a wide range of promotions. But we have been working all along over the last, I want to say, year and a half or more with our counterparts in other jurisdictions. And I know, Lisa, you have worked, in those jurisdictions as well. So maybe you can talk about how your partnership specialists kind of reach cross boundaries.
Yeah, so we work as a partnership specialist. I also work with the city of Alexandria. The city of Falls Church is also covered, and I also work in parts of Fairfax County. So We're everywhere. We have partnership specialists all throughout Northern Virginia, and we also speak a lot of languages. And so that's the whole thing. I'm a Spanish language partnership specialist, so I speak Spanish, and that's the whole thing with this partnership program with the census, is that it's people who live and work in these communities and also have connections to the various partners, so that we can get everyone counted. So yeah, we're out here working with all of our neighboring communities.
That's great. Portia, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't have anything to add right now.
Great, thank you so much. Well, that concludes our questions for the Census Bureau. Unless any of our other panelists want to ask either Beth or Lisa or Portia any additional questions. Wanda, do you have anything else for this good team before we move forward?
Yep, let's go on, move forward.
Great. So we had an earlier question about what was our response rate and what are we doing about it? And I think our next two speakers or three speakers might address that. So Elizabeth Hardy, who we introduced earlier, is our chief demographer and really leading a lot of efforts. And she's going to bring us up to speed on how are we doing in Arlington. Elizabeth?
Great, thanks, Bryna. Could we do it in presentation mode and get to the next slide?
Got it.
Great, thank you. So just today, we have reached 73.4% counted of Arlington, which is beating our 2010 self-response rate of 73.3. So we estimate that around 85,100 households have already been counted in Arlington, which is fantastic. But we still have some more to go. We still have to get that 26.6% to get everyone counted. And that's about, just under 25,000 more households to go. So next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we look at how we're doing in the region, and these are all the jurisdictions that we have been connected with throughout the time of the census doing the promotions. We have, again, Arlington 73.4%, Virginia is 68%, and the United States is 63.3%. If you look at where Arlington ranks in the region, we are slowly but surely climbing that ladder. And we are bolded there on that table. So, smaller jurisdictions like the cities of Fairfax and Falls Church, they have a higher rate, but, we have a little bit more challenges. We have a diverse population in Arlington, so it's a little harder to get the residents of Arlington counted. But we still keep climbing, and that's an overview of how we look compared to the region. Next slide, please. So let's dive deep down in Arlington a little more. If we look at the areas that have the lowest response rate, so what we did was we got this response rate by census tract, and we highlighted the areas in green on the map that are in the lower response rate, so the ones that are below 66.2%. If we take the demographics from those areas and look at those populations that reside in those areas that are highlighted in green, that accounts for about 20% of Arlington's total population. Okay, so we have 20% of Arlington's population living in a tract that has a low response area. And if we break down those demographics, thank you. We have almost 41% of Arlington's Black or African American population live in those areas. A third of the Hispanic or Latino population lives in those areas. 27.4% of the Asian population live in those areas. And same with 31.3% of the population living below the poverty level, and 42.8% of that population without a high school diploma lives in those areas. So that really shows that the populations that we need to focus on in our targeted outreach to make sure that we can focus in those areas. Just to point out the ones that are really the hardest to count, along Columbia Pike, the western end, part of Douglas Park Civic Association, their response rate is in the would say in the 50s, 56.6, I think. The little area just in Roslyn that's highlighted in green, that's on the eastern side, so North Roslyn, Roslyn, Fort Myers Heights. I think it's 56.1% there. That is River Place in that area. And then, Pentagon City and Crystal City. So that area, just being the multifamily buildings was already labeled as a hard to count area. And then we have the address issue on top of that. So that has made that area come up as low response. And the next slide, please. So I just wanted to provide some information in case you guys wanted to dive a little deeper into how you get your hands on this information. There's 2 map tools that the Census Bureau puts out online. The one on the left on this slide is the ROAM map, Response Outreach Area Mapper. And that you can drill down and look at the demographics of the different census tracts and in your neighborhoods. And then if you kind of combine that with the map on the right, which is the response rate map, you can see, where we have lower responses, where we have higher responses, and the demographics that coincide. So those are some great resources that the Census Bureau has online available to us. So with that, are there any questions or? Wait, Brenna, you're muted.
Sorry about that. In these areas that are really kind of challenging, do they make up the majority of those 25,000 households, or is it spread throughout? I know you're focused kind of on the lower level counts, but there's room for growth everywhere. Is that right?
There is room for growth everywhere. Yeah, we focused on the ones that had really the lowest self-response score, but there is room for growth everywhere. Areas in North Arlington, some of them are almost to 90%, so that is fantastic. But other areas there are lower. We get down to the 56.1%. But overall, all of Arlington needs to make sure that their neighbors are counted.
So there's a question about neighbors, and I know my neighbor needs help. What's the best way for neighbors to help neighbors access the census?
There's a couple ways that they could do it. They could help them by logging online and showing them where they could take it and pull out the appropriate language if they need to. They can also help them provide a phone number. Like Lisa was saying, there's a phone number in many different languages that are available. And then also numerators will be coming around. So maybe it's, if the numerator comes around, grab the numerator and say, hey, my neighbor needs help, if that's even possible. So there's many ways that we all can help each other get counted.
Yeah, and the phone numbers, they're 12, as Lisa mentioned earlier, 12 different languages, and phone's a really easy way to do it. Will your data be available? Where can people find it?
Yes, the data will be available. We're hoping to get the data back in 2021 at some point next year. And we will be publishing it online. We have the Arlington County profile that comes out every year, and we'll see if it's available by the next release in 2021, but definitely by 2022. And also we will put up demographics for each of the civic associations. We'll put up demographics for small areas in Arlington. And you can just go back to the Arlington County website and type in demographics, and you'll find a lot of information.
What about the data you just showed in these 4 slides? Where can people access that information? Sure.
So the data that we have in these 4 slides, that is available in the Census Toolkit, and Jerry will be showing that later on. But the Census Toolkit has our response rate, and we also have the demographics for the neighborhoods, each census tracts, all broken down in the toolkit. There's a big demographic document, has, 60 pages to it, that has the broken down for each civic association area in each tract. So you can go ahead and do some great reading through all the numbers.
And are there, if people want to put up flyers in their apartments or their laundry rooms or their church offices or, in stores, where would they get that kind of information to help get the word out?
Right, so they can contact us in Arlington, and we can make them available. We have them available in some different languages, but we can just contact us and we can make sure that people get it.
People can also download them off the website, is that right?
That's true.
On the
Yes,
census
there are.
toolkit?
Thank you. There are a lot in the census toolkit. Again, many different languages, different resources, images, and they can download and print them themselves.
So that's great. So thank you, Elizabeth. And really rich data. Elizabeth's been giving us updates weekly on our census count, and it's good to see some movement up. We do think the MQA efforts are working. We hovered at 69% for a long time. We were just kind of stuck. Wanda, did you want to say anything about the data and the response rates?
I think Elizabeth said it all.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, with that, we're going to turn it over to our newest board member, as we said, and we will be. People are asking about this presentation and how to count. Get the word out. So we will definitely get this information up and loaded, the most recent information. So thank you, everyone. I do want to reintroduce Takis Karantinos, who's our newest board member. And Takis brings a wealth of passion to our community and has a rich history. So Takis, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about why it's important. Why should we push on? We've hit 73.4%. Why can't we just stop?
Of course we shouldn't stop. This is in my neighborhood, by the way. We have some white, undercounted areas in the Western Columbia Pike and also down in Pentagon City, now National Landing. So I take it really very personally that we still cannot get to our neighbors there. This has it's part of my personal story, so I feel very personally responsible for that. So as it's widely known, I am an immigrant myself. My wife and I, we came to the United States and found ourselves in this incredibly diverse and vibrant society. And the place where we landed in Arlington, that's on Columbia Pike, that's zip code 22204, was described by the Brookings Institution, based on census data, as a world in a zip code. So more than 85 languages.
1 minute. Can you turn on your camera so everyone can see you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I couldn't. Actually, my camera is on, and I don't know why it's not.
I apologize for interrupting. Keep going. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that the camera wasn't on. I switched that on. So I was saying that, yeah, that in where we live in 22204, there are more than 85 languages, I believe, that are spoken in our schools and on our streets. We intersect daily, work together, grow families, start businesses, volunteer and participate in the commons with neighbors and residents from all walks of life who came, like us, to this country from all over the world. So this is a multifaceted, diverse, vibrant community, and it has a multifaceted, diverse, vibrant face. And reflecting this accurately is what the census is really about. As we heard how important it is to be accurately counted so that political representation and federal resources are properly and accurately apportioned. So as a community, we really deserve that. So I believe, as a call to action, so to say, that it's really our civic right to be counted. Every one of us, regardless of age, and gender, and race, and ethnicity, and ability or citizenship. It doesn't matter if you live in a house or an apartment, if you own or rent, we all count and need to be reflected in the census. Taking the census is really a right and gives voice to everyone. And this is really the very core of the intent of the framers of the Constitution. Every person, every single person in our country needs to be counted. And I hope here, everyone who is attending and is following us tonight, that we will reach out to everyone across your network. encourage them to participate in the census and help them, because sometimes it will be necessary, help them through the census. We're asking you to identify maybe one thing that you can do across your own network and share it via the chat box. And I'm going to turn that over now to Bryna and her very hard-working team, who are going to highlight some other tools and opportunities for all of you to help to get this done. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to chime in. I'm very energized. I'm seeing that we have work to do in my own neighborhood, and I'm willing to help as good as I can by calling a lot of neighbors to see if we can get to these hard to get and hard to reach households. I'm sure we will succeed.
Takis, that's really terrific, and thank you for sharing your story. I've asked people in the chat box to share their own stories, and also to identify what are some things that people are thinking about right now that they can be doing, and we'll be calling on some folks on our panel to share some of those as well as we move forward. We did have a question, and I don't know, Takis, if this is for you or maybe for Elizabeth, but if we can put the actual, does anyone have the actual phone numbers? Maybe Lisa, you do, for English and Spanish, and where's the link? Where do people get the link for online? And I know we're going to get to some of that in a minute, and we'll put it in the Facebook chat as well, so we can have it in there. And we're just really ecstatic to do this. We have some really good examples of where some of our partners have just gone over and above. And I don't know if Elizabeth or Jerry or Wanda, do you want to highlight some of those in terms of, some of our partners, what they've been doing in real time over the last several months and year, actually? So,
Jerry, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, I'd love to highlight the fact that last year's county fair was surrounded with a lot of promotion for the census, and we had a bunch of our partners come out not only to help us encourage people to educate themselves and learn about the census in real time, but also even create some of our long-standing promotional material in the form of video PSAs and things like that. So you guys have been rocking with us for the past over a year, and we're so glad that you continue to stick with us.
We appreciate it, especially with the hard-to-reach populations. We had AHC, who has done a fabulous job in their residential complexes, and we appreciate what they're doing. And people like AFAC and other nonprofit providers have really worked closely. And I don't want to underestimate what our county staff is doing also in their efforts. I know Jerry's going to be talking about that later, but it's been an all-out effort with all these wonderful partners, as well as the county staff. I think it's over almost 200 partners. Is that right? That we have? Yeah.
And we have some of the partners online tonight. I just want to do a shout out. I'm sure to miss somebody, so this is dangerous. But we have the Arlington Free Clinic has been amazing. SEEK, you mentioned AHC, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, our public school partners, and I know Elizabeth's Barbara's going to touch a little bit in a minute on what schools has been doing. Our voice partners and our faith organizations have just been outstanding. And earlier somebody asked what faith communities can do. People are connected to their faith community, and so again, those trusted partners. But we also have a number of civic associations that have stepped up and are on tonight, and really amplifying, republishing the my2020census.gov, the phone numbers. We can't have gatherings, but we can social distance, and everyone can get out their phone and take the census independently with a little coaxing. So we've been our libraries have been putting bookmarks with QR codes in every book that goes out. Arlington Free Clinic has been adding information in their medication distribution. We have schools that is including information in their food distribution, and more. So we really, it's really a village, the community, to get the remaining almost 25,000 households. So we really appreciate all of that. So thank you. I'm going to move now to our what we're really asking everyone tonight for your help. And Jerry's going to just highlight some things coming that the county is doing in coordination with the Census Bureau. This last push, we have 6 more weeks. I feel like, we're like 6 more weeks. It's like almost a fundraising, but we're not raising any money. Well, in the end, we'll raise a lot of money for Arlington County if everyone gets counted. But Jerry, what can we be doing? What can people do? What do we need their help on?
Sure. It's really incredible to hear from so many community members and so many of our community partners about how eager they are to make sure that we get to a complete count. We're at 73.4%, but we're looking for a complete count. That means 100%. And we've identified 4 ways that we think that will make a huge impact. So number 1, if we go to the next slide, number 1 is something that I'm sure most of you have already done, but take the census. And as valued members of our community, you guys are also trusted voices in this community. We really prize all of the work that you've done and the connections that you've made with the people you serve. So you're the ones that we're leaning on to let others know how easy it is to take the census. Make sure to pass on the information that we've shared today about how safe, important, confident, and confidential it is. There is no citizenship question, and we'd like to make sure that you guys are perpetuating this message across the county. If you have forgotten, which I'm sure you haven't, it can be taken online, by phone. Online, it's at my2020census.gov. All right, so that's number 1. Everyone, please make sure you've taken the census. Number 2, back in March, we had a really great event called Census Palooza, where all of the canvas signs that you guys see around the county right now were put out by our amazing volunteers who took a day to post about 300 signs. Now we'd like to emulate something similar, but of course we are working during a time of COVID, and we are using this as an opportunity to still have as much of an impact, but safe and socially distanced. So on Saturday, August 29th, we're asking for you guys to help us focus on low response areas like Barcroft Apartments, Gates of Ballston, and Green Valley, where we've identified multifamily buildings in some of our low response areas. We'd like to use this opportunity to do a door hanging campaign where we're going to put a flyer on every single door there, just to make sure that even though we have to be socially distanced and we might not be able to have that one-on-one contact, we can leave an impact on each individual living in these multifamily buildings. So it's door hangers, it's an educational opportunity also, because nearby we'll simultaneously hold a tabling event where we can talk to passersby, again, from a social distance, educating them on why the census is important, and working with our MQAs that we talked about earlier today to fill out the census in real time. We're trying to be wherever people are, but with the safety measures in place, we're trying to make sure that we also have the opportunities and access to get people counted where we are. If you guys look at the bottom of that slide, you'll be able to see the Sign Up Genius where you guys can sign up. That's obviously a very long URL, so we'll put it in the chat box for you as well. All right. Number 3, call or email a friend. We've made this as easy as possible for you because that census toolkit that everyone was talking about earlier now has scripts, not only for contacting your friends, neighbors, and family members by email, but also by phone. Even if you might not be able to reach every person by email, the email script also has a really great signature block that you can add to the bottom of your signature, making sure that with every email, you're getting eyeballs on the fact that the census is important and they can take it right then and there. And number 4, this is our reference to the census toolkit that we talked about. So we have gathered a lot of the resources that we've been using and some new ones, constantly updating this to make sure that you guys have access to census newsletters, to news stories, to social media posts, things that you can grab and go with. The data that we were talking about from the response maps are also there. This is kind of your one-stop shop as influencers in your community, as people with a communication platform. We have the resources for you. All you have to do is go there, copy and paste it. So yes, please visit us at arlingtonva.us/census. And if you go to the For Partners and Champions button, you'll be able to get to that census toolkit, or you can use the URL right underneath. And that's all I've got.
Jerry, thanks. We're asking people to sign up for Sign Up Genius, and they can sign. Where can they find that link on our website?
So that should be on the census toolkit as well, but I believe one of our team members are going to add it to the chat box.
And can you tell us a little bit about door hangers? People are very excited about the door hangers and how that will work, and how will we get into those buildings that we're going to be out and about in?
So these were identified because they are garden-style apartments where we are not, trying to get into high-rises that have huge restrictions, but other people have been successful with like voter registration and things like that. So we're just going to not knock on doors. We're just going to hang them on the doorknobs for people to be able to access the information more directly than what we have been using in the past. We can't limit ourselves with just online. This is our way of being safe, socially distant, and still present in person.
You mentioned socially distant a few times. How will it work on the 29th? How does that work for people to maintain their social distance?
So the door-to-door, we are just going on our own. I mean, like we're coming together collectively as a group, but please stay 6 feet apart. Everyone is asked to bring their mask, and then you will be set off on your station so that you can go to each of the doors and do the door hangers. We'll have a limited number of people at the tables. We have tables where you can be on both ends, and they'll be 6 feet apart, and there we'll have like individually wrapped giveaways and snacks so that we are practicing safe and social distance measures.
Yeah, people are asking this multifamily building issue about getting kind of through the doors, and enumerators, as enumerators knock on the door, maybe for Lisa or Portia, what can all of our partners do to encourage people to be open and open the doors? And also, what can property managers, how can they be helpful? And what can our partners do? Like if they live in a multifamily building, what should they be, how can they work with their property manager? So it's kind of a two-part question. I don't know who wants to take that, Lisa or Portia or Elizabeth or Beth or Takis or anyone.
Well, this is Portia. One of the things we're doing with the MQA is we are about to send out a letter to our property managers to encourage them to schedule an event at their location where we can come to the parking lot, set up an event. We can bring enumerators with us, and we can have people come outside of their homes to complete their forms if they're able to. And this will be a lot less opportunity for the enumerators to have to go door to door once we've collected their information. So soon we'll be doing more apartments and multifamily units, and all they have to do is call us to get it scheduled before the 30th.
So, Portia, if we have people here that live in a building and they can help us, how do they get in touch with you?
They can call our Crystal City office, and they can reach us to schedule it or send us an email. They can go through our community partners or the Complete Count Committee. But my number is 347-882-6809. and we can schedule you in the next few weeks to come to your building. We're also going to be scheduling some parking lot parades to go through buildings where we draw attention to the census and set up a booth as well.
All right. Thank you. That's awesome. So keep those questions coming. If people want to, some people work in multi-jurisdictions in Fairfax and DC. How do they get in touch with someone for those jurisdictions?
Well, we can take forms from any jurisdiction. It's just that it'll be counted where they live and wherever their address is at. So it doesn't matter whether you fill out your form in Arlington or Alexandria, as long as you're using your address, you'll be counted.
And will these are the mobile questionnaires and enumerators also working in the same way with, their complete count committees in DC and Fairfax and Alexandria?
They are pretty much. Now, we handle in the Crystal City ACO, we have Arlington, Falls Church, Alexandria, and some parts of Fairfax. Then we've got a Fairfax ACO. Then there's others around the area like DC as well, and they all have MQA events that are being scheduled.
That's great. Well, thank you, Elizabeth and Jerry and Portia and Lisa. We're going to turn it over to Barbara Kennanen for a little bit about schools and just move us forward. Barbara is our school
Moving
board
forward.
member.
Who counts, Bryna?
We count. Everyone counts.
Everyone counts. So thank you so much. And as the last speaker of the evening, let me just say a huge congratulations and thank you, Bryna, especially Wanda, our co-chair, all the great speakers. This has been a tremendous, really great meeting. It's been informative. We now know the statistics and we know our challenge. Wanda mentioned earlier, it's been mentioned a few times that our Complete Count Committee has been working together for over a year. We started in April 2019, and I know that seems like a world away now. But when we think back, we have done so much. This is a passionate group. We have done so much community engagement, visibility. We've built up our partnerships. We've built up our own understanding of the importance of the census. And then we've shared that information in so many ways. Students in our schools, in Arlington Public Schools, have learned about the census. They have read books. They've done activities. They've talked about the census and the importance of why they count, why their families count, why it's important that their friends count and that everyone counts. We have census signs up in every school, and so many people, including our children, enjoyed such fun census activities at the fair. It's really been special to see that light bulb go off when all of our youngest Arlingtonians understand that they count in this community. We've also battled against the challenges this census has brought us, from the citizenship question to the pandemic, and now our latest challenges with the potential curtailing of these final pieces of the effort. And today, frankly, we're not where we want to be in terms of responses, but I am going to tell you, I've gotten to know so many of you on this team over the past year, and if there's any team that knows how to bring it during crunch time, how to get this job done, it is our Complete Count Committee, along with our partners and this whole community. We cannot let those who want to minimize the importance of the census get in the way. We've worked too hard, but now we need to double down and focus on our challenge. This is our last chance to get that complete count. I'm taking this call to action myself. I'm going to double check with our superintendent and the school board and ensure that we're doing everything we can to communicate with our APS families and help them all get counted. I'm also going to do all of the following, the items that you just heard enumerated, and I hope that you will I hope you will join me. First, continuing to share posts on social media. Now that is super easy, so please don't limit yourself to just tweeting out your ideas. We need to reach out and be proactive. So please commit to talking to your network, your friends, your colleagues, school parents, other people you know. And remember, you can do all of this in a safe, socially distanced way. And speaking of safe and socially distanced, you can volunteer, as was said earlier, to get out and visit our census MQAs, our mobile questionnaire assistance stations. You can sign up. There are volunteer opportunities every day, during the week, and on weekends. It's all outside with face coverings. You can email if you're interested, census2020@arlingtonva.us. That's census2020@arlingtonva.us. And finally, my very favorite, please make that plan to attend Census Palooza 2 on August 29th. Our first Census Palooza was energizing and organized and productive, and Census Palooza 2 is undoubtedly going to be just as great. So please mark your calendar, August 29th. We can do this, everyone. Thank you all for all that you do, but especially for taking this challenge and ensuring a complete count in Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And I'm going to turn it over to Wanda to wrap us up. So thanks.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you to all of our presenters tonight. And thank you to everyone for joining us for this very important conversation. Please take action to encourage everyone in your networks to be counted. It's so important. And again, join us on Saturday, August 29th for Census Palooza 2. And always remember, everyone counts. Everyone counts. Everyone counts. Thank you. Be well.
There's a song about that. Everyone counts in the US of A. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.